Now, a Dutch volleyball player who raped a 12-year-old British girl is set to represent the country at the Paris Olympics. Steven van der Velde was jailed in 2016, but despite the outcry, the Dutch Olympics Committee has defended his selection.
Few events in the realm of athletics have generated as much public controversy and discussion as Steven van der Velde's inclusion in the 2024 Paris Olympics. A convicted child rapist. This divisive topic crosses the spheres of ethics, rehabilitation, and justice, as well as the obligations of sports teams. Van der Velde's journey started in 2014 when the then 19-year-old Dutch volleyball player visited the UK to see a 12-year-old girl he had met on Facebook. Van der Velde sexually assaulted her under the cover of a romantic interest, a horrible deed that resulted in his ultimate incarceration. He entered a guilty plea to 3 charges of rape involving a juvenile. 2016 saw his 4-year prison sentence. But per their more lax sexual crime rules, Van der Velde served a total of 13 months in custody, 12 months in the UK and 1 month in the Netherlands, according to a transfer arrangement. After his release in 2017, he tried to recover his place in the volleyball scene, raising serious ethical issues. Should a convicted rapist be let to participate on the international scene? Does rehabilitation free one of public responsibility? By 2024, Steven van der Velde, now 29, is about to represent his country at the Paris Olympics. His inclusion was rather contentious right away. The Dutch Olympic Committee stuck to their choice in spite of several demonstrations and petitions, including one with almost 90,000 signatures. Van der Velde reportedly had a minimal chance of reoffending and experienced major rehabilitation. The NOC said a lot has happened since then. After serving his term, Steven underwent a thorough rehabilitation program under the direction of qualified experts, including the probationary service. Professionals have decided there's no chance of recidivism. Still, this position drew strong condemnation from many spheres of life, especially from victim advocate groups. Rape Crisis England and Wales CEO Ciara Bergman said allowing him to compete creates an enormous sense of impunity and drastically lessens the seriousness of his crime. Van der Velde's Olympic debut has received largely negative public response. The audience boos greeted Van der Velde as he entered the court for his first game, a clear sign of the general criticism. This response was a clear emblem of public unhappiness with the choice, unlike the typical Olympic shout. These feelings transcended the field. Protests against his admission were spearheaded by groups including Rape Crisis England and Wales, the Army of Survivors, and Kinska Advocacy, both online and on the ground. Gathering at the Eiffel Tower Stadium, demonstrators held signs calling for responsibility from sports teams engaged in this choice. The Dutch Olympic Committee, meantime, stayed firm, arguing that Van der Velde met all the required risk assessment criteria, and that expert assessment showed a low chance of reoffending. They supported his comeback. Critics contended that Van der Velde's involvement communicated the incorrect message about sexual crime responsibility and ethical standard of sports. Even with his public openness and stated regret, many times athletes are considered as moral integrity, discipline, and hard work examples. Letting Van der Velde compete begs questions about the messaging sports and organizations provide to the public. For personal redemption, are they compromising these ideals? Many officials and sportsmen have voiced their displeasure. Chief Ian Chesterman of the Australian Olympic team went on record declaring that a convicted rapist would never be permitted to represent Australia at the Olympics. Different points of view abound in the Netherlands, as some people support Van der Velde's entitlement to a second opportunity, while others object to his choice. Van der Velde felt he earned a second opportunity after serving his sentence and going through rehabilitation. Hence, his decision was based on that. They underlined his regular self-insight and contemplation as well as the great professional counseling he had. This was insufficient, though, to satisfy opponents who maintained that no degree of rehabilitation could possibly offset the seriousness of his actions. Among this debate, the International Olympic Committee has come under fair fire as well, although the IOC said national Olympic committees are mostly in charge of selecting athletes. They also recognize the complexity and moral conundrum Van der Velde's participation presents. Emphasizing the excellent safeguarding policies in place, IOC spokesman Mark Adams pointed out that major rehabilitation has taken place since the crime 10 years ago. Adams' remarks, however, provide little comfort to those who contend that letting Van de Velde compete compromises Olympic values. Amid demands for a more thorough inquiry on his selection, some have seen the IOC's posture as a means of passing the responsibility on a divisive topic. National committees bear great responsibility for juggling these ethical quandaries and ensuring that the weights between retribution and atonement are balanced. Van de Velde's Olympic debut has not only put him under close examination, but also subjected his coaches and colleagues to great scrutiny. Van de Velde's beach volleyball competitor Matthew Immers has been asked about his opinions on playing beside a convicted rapist quite a bit. Choosing to concentrate on the sport, Immers expressed his support of Van de Velde as a teammate. Still, there is an undercurrent of conflict behind these apparent expressions of solidarity. Players and coaches trying to negotiate the ethical quagmires and public outrage while keeping their competitive concentration has surely taxed the team chemistry. The Dutch Olympic Committee took numerous steps in an effort to lessen criticism. Van de Velde decided against staying at the Olympic Village, perhaps to avoid possible conflict with other sportsmen and the media. He was also led to refrain from participating in post-game media events, therefore minimizing chances for public confrontation or negative coverage. These actions show that he is aware of the controversial character of his involvement, but they have not really addressed basic issues regarding his presence. The NOC has underlined the need to use concrete measures to guarantee a safe sporting environment for all participants. The details of these actions are yet unknown. Transparency in these guarantees is argued by critics to be absolutely vital for public confidence and responsibility. Lack of thorough knowledge fuels doubt on whether these policies really solve the current fundamental problems. The argument around Van de Velde reflects more general society debates on justice, rehabilitation, and responsibility than only a sporting one. Having a convicted child rapist competing in the Olympics causes society to face difficult issues. Can someone who has done such a horrible act ever really be forgiven? Should the possibility of a second chance be shared equitably in all spheres? Some contend that giving people the opportunity to reintegrate into society and redeem themselves by their behavior defines the core of rehabilitation. Others argue, however, that some crimes cross a moral threshold and demand constant responsibility, particularly if the conduct targets helpless victims like children. The ethical terrain gets much more complex when one considers the great influence and prominence athletes bring into society. Public opinion on Van de Velde's Olympic participation is still rather mixed. Online protests and petitions expose a general rejection of his participation. Clearly stating their position, activists outside the Eiffel Tower Stadium carried placards saying, "No place for rapists in our Olympics." Nonetheless, some of the people in the Netherlands support Van de Velde since they believe he has paid his debts and should have a chance to show his changed behavior on a worldwide scene. The demonstrations and petitions are moving reminders of the contentious fight for victims' rights and the opposition against the acceptance of sexual abuse, not only statements of disapproval. Not less important is the media's amplification of every aspect of this debate. Globally, international newspapers such as The Guardian, The Mirror, The Business Standard, and Time have covered the matter extensively, frequently denouncing the choice and challenging the moral foundations of it. The media focus not only raises public awareness of the more general ethical concerns, but also forces sports teams to review their policies and practices. Van de Velde's case will surely be a key case study for the next rules on the involvement of sportsmen with criminal pasts. Sports teams have to more closely assess the junction of ethics and qualifying standards as media attention keeps increasing. Public view of the Van de Velde issue is sharply split in the Netherlands. Although some Dutch people have voiced support for his participation, claiming that he has served his sentence and merits a second opportunity, others have strongly objected to the choice. This split captures the general social conflicts over the harmony between responsibility and rehabilitation. Renowned for its progressive attitude to criminal justice, the Netherlands has come under fire for allegedly treating cases involving sexual offenses leniently. The Van de Velde case has reopened this discussion as many wonder whether the nation's focus on rehabilitation has come at the expense of public safety and victims' rights. The Van de Velde case has pushed sports leagues right into the center of a difficult moral conundrum. These organizations who represent their different sports have to negotiate the fine line separating maintaining the integrity of competition from giving chances for atonement and rehabilitation. Van de Velde's inclusion by the Dutch Olympic Committee has drawn close examination, since detractors contend that it compromises the values and ideals the Olympic movement is supposed to stand for. Critics of the International Olympic Committee's unwillingness to participate more actively in the situation, have also pointed out that many feel the IOC should establish more exact criteria for athlete eligibility, especially in cases involving major criminal offenses. Sports teams have to consider where to draw the line today. Do they give the possibility for atonement top priority, even in view of public indignation and the possibility of scarring victims even more? Alternatively, do they adopt a tough posture and refuse to provide those who have committed heinous crimes a forum, independent of their efforts at rehabilitation? The Steven Van de Velde debate marks a turning point in the changing terrain of sports ethics. Not only a one-case event, this problem will surely have broad consequences, including the next policies and decision-making procedures inside sports teams all around. The echoes of this argument will persist as the Olympics go on, forcing sportsmen, officials, and the general public to rethink their ethical systems and the messages they provide to each other. The Van de Velde case has revealed the difficulties in juggling the goals of rehabilitation, responsibility, and sports integrity protection. Sports teams have to start strong, open, inclusive conversations going ahead to create clear rules upholding fair play, respect, and the protection of all participants, especially the most vulnerable. Ignoring this runs the danger of eroding public confidence even more and maybe sparking more heated debates that would compromise the very core of the sports scene. Steven Van de Velde's participation in the 2024 Paris Olympics has set off a whirlwind of debate highlighting the ethical flaws in the sports sector as well as the larger society's conversation on rehabilitation, responsibility, and athletes' influence as role models. It is abundantly evident as the world observes this developing drama that the Van de Velde case marks a turning point in sports ethics development. The choices taken by the International Olympic Committee and the Dutch Olympic Committee will have long-lasting effects not only on the integrity of the Olympic movement, but also on the way sports organizations negotiate the difficult interaction between the public at large for the protection of vulnerable individuals and individual redemption. In the end, this debate reminds us sharply that sports organizations have ethical obligations much beyond the boundaries of the field of play. They have to be ready to face the toughest moral conundrums, honor the ideals that distinguish their particular sport, and lead with integrity that builds confidence in the international sporting community. The world is observing. The decisions taken now will define sports ethics going forward for next generations.